Welcome to the Core Women Podcast, the place for women entrepreneurs, authors, and self-starters looking to build community and gain valuable insights through expert interviews with women at the top of their game. Join your host, podcaster, producer, expert coach, entrepreneur, and author, Dr. Summer Watson, as she aims to inspire and empower you through these candid conversations. Lean in and embrace the journey. It's time to start the show. Here's your host, Dr. Summer Watson.
Welcome back to the Core Women Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Bibiana Krall, who is a visionary author, literary alchemist, and co-creator of the award-winning Haunted series. Known for her genre-bending work that weaves Gothic suspense, magical realism, and speculative fiction, Bibiana invites readers into worlds where myth meets machine and feminine power rises from the shadows. With her newest novel, Deathcap, launching this fall, and her upcoming literary salon, House of Mirrors, debuting on YouTube, Bibiana is once again breaking boundaries, conjuring dark beauty, and daring us to step into the surreal. This is going to be a magical conversation, so let's dive right in and welcome Bibiana.
Thank you so much for having me back on your incredible podcast, Dr. Summer.
It is always a pleasure to speak with you, Bibiana. But before we dive into your professional journey and what you've got going on, if you could describe your life in one word to this point, what would that word be now and why?
You know, I knew you were going to ask me this. Invictus. Invictus is the word.
Okay, tell us more. Why that word and how that applies to your why?
Invictus is one of my favorite words because it's one of my favorite poems by William Henley. It's an incredible poem, and if you have not read it, you really should. But it's basically about resilience. It's about starting over and about facing your fears, which is pretty much the story of my life and also what I do as an author every single day.
Well, let's dive a little bit deeper into that, about facing fears, what you've done, the evolution of your journey, and how you've jumped into that resilience. Tell us more.
Oh, there's so many stories. Well, you know, I've reinvented myself more times than I can actually really remember. So for me, it's either myself or someone else is often telling me that I can't do something, or I'm telling myself I can't do something, or a situation feels absolutely impossible. And a few years ago, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro with my husband, and I trained for it for months and months and months. And then we ended up getting an opportunity and moved to a new city. And we had to basically bail on all of that because we were dealing with a new job, a new city. So a year later, we decided we were going to try for it again. So we had to train again. And I'm not a young person. So training in the heat, 3 to 6 miles every day, lugging around all this water, it was a lot. It was really a lot.
Yeah.
When we finally got on the mountain, it was almost overwhelming how big this mountain is. This mountain is not like any other mountain I've ever seen. It just gets bigger no matter how much you walk, no matter how far you climb. And it's really, really different at night than it is in the day. It's almost like you're on a different planet. Every single day felt almost like an entire life journey, which I know sounds bonkers, but that's kind of how it felt. It was amazing, but it was also extremely hard, harder than I even imagined it would be. And when we finally got to basically the peak of the mountain, I was like, am I really here or am I hallucinating? Like, I've been looking at this for days. But that's just one little teeny slice. There's a lot of things that aren't as exciting as Kilimanjaro. But, you know, the biggest thing is at every stage in life, I've had plenty of people telling me I couldn't do things, telling myself I couldn't do things. And, you know, if it really meant something to me, I did it anyway. So There you are.
Well, I love that because you absolutely jumped into the unknown. You were willing to feel the change, the difference, the courage that it took to actually follow through on a plan, follow through on a passion, follow through on a dream. And even though that 1 year was a step back, you still trained again and you went up that mountain. You did it. And I see you going up these mountains. I see you as a friend, as an author, as a creative. being connected with you. I see you doing so many things, and I'm so excited for you because you are courageous. So, Bibiana, your stories are haunting, they're cinematic, and they're beautifully complex. Can you take us back to what first drew you to the world of Gothic and speculative fiction? And tell us more for the listeners what speculative fiction is.
Well, first of all, speculative fiction is really a subgenre, and it can encompass so many different genres. It can be horror, it can be science fiction, it can be gothic. What it really is it's a style of sort of elevated writing that really tries to drill down into the question of why. Why did this happen? Or what if X happened? What would the chain of events be that followed? That's a very simplistic description of speculative fiction that I write under the dystopian science fiction, speculative fiction. But I also write speculative fiction under really the Gothic umbrella, which is completely, in my opinion, fueled by dark feminine angst. In the sense that you see the world as this place where you're always the person in the haunted woods. You don't own the haunted woods. You're on the path through the haunted woods, and suddenly you realize it's haunted, but you're already in the middle of it. And to me, that's the heart of the Gothic, really.
And I know that you have found yourself at times in the middle of the Gothic woods. I've heard stories. So, folks, I've heard these stories behind the scenes of her riding a bike through those Gothic woods. And and so you don't just write about it, you've experienced a great deal of this, which is infused into your writing, which is something I absolutely adore about you and what you do. You have a new novel coming out, Deathcap, and it brings together supermodels, supernatural curses, and 1990s culture in the French Alps. What inspired you to write this story, and how does it build on the themes in Banshee, another of your books?
Both of the books are from a really experimental series that I call Pop Gothic. So it's a marriage of basically pop culture of a very specific year, not an era, a very specific year, and Gothic tropes, which are things like, we'll say, an atmospheric haunted manor, or a young girl who's left in isolation in some crumbling mansion in some far off place, and her imaginary friend is actually a ghost of her dead sister. Or, like, to me, the Gothic it's really dark and chewy.
Yeah.
But the pop culture part, what it does is it takes it out of the sort of stale, manner of 1755, where a woman can only do like three different things, which is be housekeeper, marry some dude, or go off and be the school marm, which are the basically three choices of a woman. So I'm taking those Gothic aspects and putting them in a modern woman and modern landscape, in this particular story in 1990, of the top 6 supermodels in the world are invited to a private, super exclusive retreat in the French Alps. And they have not met each other because they're all really busy. They've seen each other, and yeah, they're competition, but they don't actually know each other because supermodels don't work with supermodels. Like, you're the star. So I wanted to do that because what I wanted to do was sort of show maybe what these really super successful, super motivated women, young women, would be like when they're all together. But also to throw in the Gothic, which to me is the dark shadow over any independent, any strong woman, any woman out in the world trying to make her way in professions where maybe if you're not beautiful, or if something happens to your beauty, perhaps you're out of a job. Perhaps nobody loves you anymore. So I wanted to kind of talk about some of the super secret things that women go through behind the scenes with aging, with comparison to other women, comparison to one kind of beauty or another kind of beauty. So I'm really drilling down into that in the pop culture side of it, and keeping it a very modern story Whereas with the Gothic themes, of course, I get to do cool supernatural stuff and have bad people being extra, extra evil and extra bad. And as far as the Trail from Banshee, Suki Murphy, basically the face of this super famous synthwave band from 1987, is besties with Solange, the number one supermodel in the world, who goes to this crazy retreat. So how is it connected? Well, I guess you're just going to have to read it to know that part. But they are best friends, and Solange does know about some of the supernatural elements that Suki has fought. Suki has managed to not lose her marbles, lots of things going on in Banshee, and because she comes across a real Banshee.
Well, I love that connection, your description of that creative framework that you've put together where that is that connection. And I have to go back to Deathcap because, first of all, it sounds extremely cool. Pop culture meets Gothic, right? How? I mean, just the creative brain. That's amazing. I love it. And getting really specific and narrowing down to a year. But one of the things you said as you talked about this particular book is the dark shadow, the looming shadow. And there's a lot of symbolism there, a lot of parallels to ego, courage, it's aging, as you said, comparison, beauty. There's a lot of that symbolism. Am I wrong to think that that dark shadow could be some of those things? Could be the parallel there, to a certain degree? Because when I hear your description, I'm like, wow, it got my brain just clicking about symbolism, parallels.
Well, here's the thing. I ask myself this question when someone is like a super athlete, like at the Olympics. You see somebody win 10 gold medals and they're, 21 years old. And you think, at least I think to myself, what on earth are they going to do to top this for themselves? How are they going to move forward from this massive win that other people will not let go of? So I was thinking to myself, if I was a supermodel, which I really am not, but if I was a supermodel and suddenly something happened to me and I was no longer the face of every luxury brand on the planet, and I had maybe not worked on any other skills, what on earth would happen? Would I end up becoming a lumberjack and living in Alaska by myself in an off-grid house? I mean, what would happen to me? And how would I handle it? How would I really handle it? And secondly, because of the fact that I've really been trained by the business I'm in to distrust every woman in the room, to distrust every form of friendship, because the form of friendship coming at me is very shallow and very specific towards some kind of gain externally. Who do I trust? Do I trust myself? Can I trust these other people? And those kind of questions normally don't come into place, I would say, for a supermodel, because they have a team to handle things for them. Maybe, hopefully, one or two good friends or a great mom or a great dad, somebody they can talk to. But these supermodels are isolated. And I did it on purpose because I wanted to see, as a thinking human being, as a woman who's out there in the world with lots of other competitive, smart, brainy women, I wanted to see what would happen to us. Would we fall apart? Would we become friends? Would we, I don't know, sacrifice one for the other? What would be going on in our brains, and what would be going on not just in our brains, but in the actions propelling us after our brains told us A or B? So I like to ask questions like that.
Well, and that's where it becomes the why, right? The why. Why is such and such happening? What am I going to do? Why would I do that? Why would I do that in reflection? There's so many of those whys, but that's what I love about your writing. You do put this creative spin on things where we get to ask ourselves so many of those why questions, right? And we can dig a little deeper and go beyond with the word. It's more than that. It's your imagination. It's your curiosity. So when does this book come out?
Well, the date has finally been made official. So it is coming out September 22nd, 2025.
Nice, nice. Can't wait. Now, you also have the House of Mirrors, your upcoming literary salon celebrating spooky stories in the spoken word. What inspired this project, and what can viewers expect when it premieres, and when does it premiere?
Well, House of Mirrors is really cool. I woke up in the middle of the night about 5 days ago and I had this great idea. Just sort of as I love literature. I want people to embrace literature, spoken word, books. And I'm not talking about just books, just blah, 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 words on a page. I mean, like words that really feel something, words that make you feel something. And a lot of writers have been reporting to me that people aren't buying books, people aren't reading books, libraries are closing, oh my gosh, like what are we going to do? So to me, what this really is this is like sort of a takeover for people who love literature, for people who are concerned about things like that. And it is super imaginative, super creative. I am pushing people hard to get out of their comfort zones. And trust me, they have been very uncomfortable, but they are bringing beautiful things. And it premieres on the 19th of September on YouTube. It is House of Mirrors or at Author Readings. But anyway, it's gorgeous. I've got all kinds of different writers contributing, and it's spooky, haunted, mystical, dark fairy tale. No gore, guys. Sorry, just don't do it. Don't want it. But we are doing psychological suspense. The first one, I have to say, I have to give a little bit of a trigger, is about childbirth, and it's Southern Gothic. So that's all I can say, guys. But it is gorgeous. This book is gorgeous. That particular one is by E. Denise Phillips. And I feel so blessed to have writers sending me their work and saying, okay, what would work best and how should we read this? And coaching them on how to dramatically deliver these beautiful 400 word pieces, which is not a lot to be able to give you a gorgeous slice of what they're doing or to create something new. So I hope you check it out.
Oh, it sounds amazing. I can't wait to check it out. So I'm looking forward to the premiere. Now, you helped me segue into this question by mentioning the word mentor. As a mentor and advocate for indie authors, especially women, what have you learned about claiming creative space and building bold, unconventional stories?
Well, I've learned that there's two camps. There's the camp that doesn't want you to do it, and there's the camp that is thrilled to pieces that you are. So I've come to the conclusion that anything you do that has somebody in the background telling you you can't do it, you're probably headed in the right direction. So without tension, without some kind of pushback, without a little bit of pressure, it's probably really not the right mode. So that's something you need to tell yourself. If it's too easy, if it's too squishy like a marshmallow when you first open the package, maybe skip it. Just skip it, because the real art, the real path for every person who's creating, it's got to have a little bit of tension. It just has to.
I love that because it brings out that rebel, right?
Yeah.
Or are you just pushing people to a place, even yourself, to a place of being authentic, right?
Yeah.
And being creative. And I think a lot of times people in the mainstream will see that as rebellious. And yet it may not, it may be just discomfort because you've never put yourself there. So that's why you're asking these writers to be there, to join you, to push themselves. And in all of that, and even in this beautiful creation of House of Mirrors, you're inviting other people to join in by listening in, by watching, by being stimulated about these stories, about these 400 plus word stories that are going to stimulate you, and you're going to ask why. You're going to question the status quo. And I love it.
Thank you very much. And, the thing that's really cool is not only is it helping really challenge writers who are working every day in the community, but I'm hoping that it will have a little bit of a crossover and inspire young people who are maybe afraid of sharing their voices, afraid of doing creative things, will just say, well, this chick could do it, maybe I could do it. And they'll put their own spin on it, do it their own way. And if being authentic is rebellious, then I'm a rebel. That's all I can say, because that's the goal, guys. That is the goal.
And I love it. I'll join you in that rebellion. I mean, really, it's fun, it's exciting, and it's meaningful because you're in alignment with your own soul path. And that changes things. That changes things in how you perceive the world and others, because you can be free to be yourself. And that is significant. So we have covered so much. You have so much going on. You have a book coming out. You have this beautiful salon, House of Mirrors, coming out on YouTube. I'm so excited. I always love your September, October releases. This House of Mirrors is just up in the game even more. And I love that you're bringing in young people, and you talked about, that mentorship and really asking them to lean in and consider their why as well. So as we come to the close of the interview, Bibiana, for aspiring writers drawn to dark, mythic, or surreal themes, what's one piece of advice you'd offer to help them develop their voice?
I think the best way to develop your voice, especially if you're going to delve into dark themes and dark literature, is to read the classics. And I know everybody says that, but you know what? You really need to read the classics. And the classics are there because they were written at a time when people were not allowed legally to say what they needed to say, or society would cast them out if they said it, but it could be put in a book. So if you read that, you will understand two things. One, not a darn thing has changed. And two, that human beings in 1755 literally have almost the same inner monologue that you have when you're struggling through something. So what's to know is that we're all connected through history. We're all connected through stories. And, if you don't have any dark history in your life, if you've never struggled or had trauma, congratulations. That sounds amazing. But if you have, think about the path that you had to take to get yourself out of that dark place, and give that information to your characters.
Thank you, Bibiana, for joining me on the Core Women podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. You can connect with Bibiana Krall on LinkedIn and Instagram, on YouTube at Black Calyx Books, and at www.bibianakrall.com.
Thank you for joining us on the Core Women podcast with Dr. Summer Watson. We're so glad you're here and would love to connect more with you. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Core Women, and on Twitter at Core Women 1. For more about Core Women and Dr. Watson, visit corewomen.com. Want more support and resources for amazing women like you? Great! Join Dr. Watson and Jen Fontanilla at the Life, Love, and Money Collective, a Core Women production that aids in understanding the key traits that might be getting in the way of living a life that you are absolutely passionate about. Connect with Summer and Jen and find out more at thelifeloveandmoney.com.